See if it goes up. There we are. We are live. Okay, welcome to the Where's Your Next Careers and Recruiting Vlogcast. Today's topic is about entrepreneurship and careers, how you can own your career, create your own opportunities, different things like that. We have a good panel for this discussion today. I've got some good friends. I'm going to introduce my co-host, Robert Merrill, first. Robert, tell us a little bit more about yourself. You're on mute.
I'm Robert Merrill. I have a consulting company called Limitless Talent, which is really a newsletter just talking about future of work and where I think the future of work is going. So yeah, great to be here with you, Mike.
Yep. He's a great co-host. We've gotten a few shows under our belt so far. We're going to keep it going. More stuff coming. Good topics coming down the pike. Next one is my good friend, Steve Levy. Steve, tell us about yourself more.
My name is Steve Levy, as Mike had just told everybody. I am an engineer who crossed over to the dark side into recruiting. I've been recruiting now for a few years. I run recruiting companies, run sourcing, run tech recruiting, global conference speaker, writer, mentor, coach, pundit, and one of the founders of the Association of Talent Acquisition Professionals.
Yeah.
And if not for these beautiful blue glasses, I probably look like I'm probably out of Sons of Anarchy, something like that.
Awesome. Next is Joseph Arrington, who is a good friend out here in Utah. He worked with me in one of our church callings.
Yeah, we met about 4 years ago now. Yeah, it's been a while. So I'm Joseph. I've lived here I claim Utah. I've lived here since I was 6 years old, originally from Texas. And a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, we can definitely tell you're from Texas with that accent that you have. It's very distinguished."
No, it's the blue jacket that says.
Yeah.
So I work in healthcare. Lots of different roles, different things over the years. And just going along, being a lifelong learner, continuing my training and dabbling in that space, trying to help patients the best way I can.
Yeah, your story is fun. I think there's the reason I brought you on today is I knew you'd add a very unique perspective on this topic because I think entrepreneurship in your career is an amazing thing. You can create your own opportunities. I'll talk a little bit about what I do right now. I'm doing gig work because I'm in the vibe trying to figure out my next recruiting role. But on that note, I'm also started my own YouTube channel. I'm learning how to do content creation, getting better at that as I go. Still learning. I'm gonna probably take an editing class here pretty soon just to get more better at it.
Talk to Chewy.
Yes,
talk
absolutely.
to Chewy.
Mr. Okay. Chewy, yes, Mike Chudian, our good friend. But yeah, no, there's a lot of good things in this topic. I think, when it comes to 2024, a lot of displaced talent acquisition professionals, a lot of people have been laid off from tech companies. So a lot of people in transition right now. And so I think, this topic's important from the standpoint of when you own your career from the standpoint of, you're the CEO of your own life, which is something I've talked about on this channel before. Mm-hmm. It's powerful concept, right? It's create that entrepreneurship, make it come to you. You make your own opportunities in a way. And sometimes you might have an idea and then, go after that idea and then pitch it and figure out how to make it your own. Mm-hmm. So things like that. Joseph, how you started Beacon Sleep Solutions, and you were recognized by the Utah Business 40 Under 40, which is a really cool accolade. You've done a lot. I want to go to you because I think, from the standpoint of owning your career and creating your own opportunities, that's a fun perspective that you have there. So,
yeah. On that note, it kind of ties into the discussion that we were having a little bit earlier in the pregame show about degrees and whatnot. So, I started my MBA. I was doing some stuff, and during that time, I got back to an idea that I'd had about machinery, technology that could help wake people up from different sleeping disorders that they'd have. I myself have suffered from disorders my entire life. And my naivete at that time was, oh my heavens, I'm doing an MBA. I know business now. I just finished my first semester of my MBA. I'm going to go start a business. And I quickly learned that that's not the degrees. They don't.
They don't
They don't.
prepare you for those
They
things.
can open up some doorways, but you have to have the experience and the know-how to get things done.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, just started working slowly, networking, bringing on people to the team, and it's been quite a few years, and we've been working at it and chipping away at it, and it's been an amazing endeavor.
How
But
many employees you got
just to
now?
dive in, right now we're at 6.
Wow. Good for
Awesome.
you.
It's not the usual entrepreneurial route where someone says, I want to disrupt this. I'm going to print up business cards that say CEO on it for me.
Yeah, that was something.
And I'm going to give them to my
struggled
parents.
with.
My mom's going to hand them out to all her friends.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my mom asked for mine. Yeah,
Well, there
but
you
yeah,
go.
that was actually. It's funny you mentioned that. For the longest time, I did not put CEO on anything I did because it's like, well, I mean, in my head, CEO is like giant Fortune 500 company. But then just from some advice from some other people, it's like, hey, even if it's a small company, you're doing the work, you're going out there. Don't lie about your title. On paper, it's CEO. Put down CEO. Don't be ashamed of it. So.
Well, that's actually remarkably good advice that people, there are two sides to the coin. I remember, this goes decades, somebody said, there's no difference between, a corner deli and GE. They're both businesses. They both have operations, they both have finance, they both have organization, and they all have data. It's just a question of scale.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and in many cases, and I think people get hung up on this, scale is what scares people.
Yep.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and we were talking about somebody we knew who was a musical professional. This person didn't know the person I was talking about, and they said, "Oh, so where did they perform?" And I said the different venues. Like, "Oh, okay, so they're not really a musician." I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" And there's really the whole topic of scale. Like, it doesn't matter if you're in Hollywood or if you do a lot of different bars and pubs and whatnot. You're still a musician. That's your profession. That's what you do every day. That's what you love. And I mean, sometimes scaling and getting over to Hollywood has a lot more to do with networking and luck than actual talent.
And there's another side. There's luck, there's talent. There's also in what scale, what scope are you comfortable in?
Yeah,
Where's your impact? When when you're the CEO, when you're like a Jamie Dimon, how many people you're actually personally influencing?
right.
Of course, you're influencing other people by your actions, by your words, but in terms of down to the point where people are going to act upon your words,
Right.
Scale sometimes hinders.
Yeah, and one thing that I'll add to this is I remember I used to work at Paychex, and really dating myself now. Back in 2007,
Dating yourself.
2007, I worked for Paychex,
Experience.
and it was a good experience because what happened was I learned met. So they have a program called Paychex Premier, and basically it's an HR consulting. So I was a young HR professional, had gotten my SHRM certification, and I was advising small clients that were anywhere from 1 to 50 employees, and some were upwards of 500 employees and less. So it was a really interesting endeavor because I learned at that time that entrepreneurship takes on many different forms. It looks different, but the same people issues and leadership that you have to manage in any company exists, except on a larger scale because you're dealing with a wide variety of different issues from the standpoint of finding the right talent that can help you scale and move forward. And you have to have a vision that supports that. And I think it starts again with your own career. It's a kind of you're like a mini CEO in a way, right? I mean, when we we could say that anyone, even if you're not running a business, quote unquote, an employee and a 1099 contractor or whatever you're doing, you're the CEO of your own life. You're selling your own services. You're going out.
Yeah.
Anytime you have a skill like sourcing or recruiting or whatever, that's a skill, and then you're marketing yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that from the standpoint of thinking about this, I think you and I early on, Steve, you gave me some advice that stuck, and I thought it was really cool. You said selling yourself is very important. You have to not trip over your words, and you were really kind of hit the tooth right on the hit right on the nail. It was really good because
Was it the tooth or the nail?
the nail. You hit it on the nail.
I just want to, you know, we're giving people advice. We have to be, you know, details matter.
Hitting it
Well,
on the tooth is painful.
well, yeah.
Hitting-
What I was basically saying is when you gave that advice, you were talking about you made me realize that I was the CEO of my own search,
Yeah.
and the way that I present my value proposition is very key, right? I mean, that's what hit me right in the core. And ever since, my conversations and my interviews have taken on new life. It's just a different way of looking at it. And so I think Joseph, same thing. I mean, you have to kind of look at your own value in that way, right? It's how do you do that as a CEO and starting up?
Yeah, I mean, a part of it is walk the walk, and like I guess fake it till you make it. So many times, especially in the very beginning, I'd be going to these different conferences, different networking things, pitching the idea, and a lot of it has to just go with confidence that you can actually attain it. There are a lot of opportunities out there, and not too many resources to help you figure out how to start on your own. But if you have ingenuity and grit, you can go out and use Google effectively, go to different conferences effectively, talk with different people. And if you start chaining the different pieces of advice that you get, you can start building something and be ready for when pivots need to happen. I mean, the COVID-19 pandemic really crippled us for a couple of years. But I mean, right there, that's where grit comes in. And I was even talking to my co-founder recently, and in the middle of our conversation, he just said, you know, I want to stop for just 1 second. I want to thank you for keeping this alive and keeping this going, because I really thought that, you know, things weren't going to go well once we got that huge bottleneck from the pandemic. But if you hadn't have persevered through all of that, I don't think that we would be where we are now. And so surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, but make sure that you have the grit to keep everything and anchor everything together is my thought.
You know, the grit, I think, is too often put up as this glowing thing that like you're kneeling at the altar of grit.
No.
And the problem with that is, and also I tend to take exception to, I don't like fake it till you make it, because way too many continue faking it.
Oh, that's true.
And they think they make it. The
Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the grit part means it's not just bulldogging us. I'm going to bounce my head off that brick wall. I'm going to go through it. Damn it! You look to the side. It's open. Just walk around. It's the education piece. It's
strategy. Yeah,
it's strategy. But it's literally the tactical piece of learning and being patient. In patience, you know, imagine you're a new chef, and I'm you know, this isn't Julia Child. I'm going to look at onions until I learn how to do it. But you go. Has anybody here tried to use that technique without it going fast and like slice your fingers?
I haven't even been courageous enough to try.
Well, there you go. So you can be grit. I'm gonna bloody these onions until I learn how to cut them. Damn it! But you know, grit means you said it, Joseph. It's you know, lifelong learning. Grit means
hard knocks of life is also the best way to learn.
You have to commit yourself to learning and never. It's
learning from the mistakes and not repeating them. Yeah.
You know, when someone says, I gave it 100% and I got to where I wanted. Well, you know, you didn't give it 100% because there's the next level of, you know, it's just your 100% is your next 10%. So
yeah, I had
that's a great point.
My wife, I've observed some entrepreneurship in my own family, and it was right after COVID, she decided, you know, there's a need here. People are always asking if I want to teach preschool. And so what she did is she started her own little startup preschool. And it's a small, I mean, this is just another idea. It's a passion of hers. She likes working with preschool kids that are 3 and 4 years old, right? And she just is really good with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I observed, you know, she created a logo. She came up with an idea and a concept of how to price it, and all the iterations of what she went through, and even keeping track of her own expenses and revenue was interesting. So what happened was but I've seen a liberation in a sense. Like
Mm,
she was a school teacher and she was frustrated with the way things go, and all of us know how undervalued school teachers can be. But she created her own opportunity in her own home and got a business license and went through that whole process. She learned everything on her own,
yep.
figured it all out. And she has demand like coming. Like there are people who were referring people to her, and it's kind of blossoming now. So we could even take that to a bigger degree when she's ready. You know,
Mhm.
there's that much demand for it. It's amazing. And so just seeing that journey has been fun to watch, and it's taught me a few things just watching my spouse go through
Yeah.
that
And that goes
herself.
back to what Steve was saying about scaling. You said when she's ready, she's happy where she is now. She's doing what she wants to do. If
Yep.
she wants to go to not the next level, but a different sphere, a different level, then that transition can happen. But I mean, if you are happy where you are, there's no reason to. And that kind of ties into one of the things people like mention. Oh, you're going for your second doctorate and everything, and degrees and all that stuff. My advice on that is if you don't need a college degree, don't go after it. I mean,
Bingo.
some of the most successful, amazing people, intelligent people I've ever met didn't go after any degrees. Some of them not even bachelor's degrees, and maybe it's because they were so intelligent they didn't go after them.
It's
For me,
great
there
hearing you
are
say that, Joseph, because
some people think
you
like
are,
you of all people.
yeah, right, totally. And
Yeah,
it's fun.
and
It's
the
fun.
reason
I knew
that
you would say that.
Well,
It's fun hearing that
but,
perspective.
but we have, the degrees.
it depends on what your goals are. I mean,
But
there are specific things that I want to do that I cannot do them unless I attain some of these trainings and degrees that I'm going after. But that's my pathway. Other
but,
people like
but it's
that.
more
That's
than
a
just yours,
waste of
Joseph.
time.
It's more than yours. A show of hands here. Is anyone going to go to a doctor who doesn't have an MD,
Right, exactly. Or a DO, yeah.
or a lawyer who doesn't have a
I studied
JD?
on YouTube.
Yeah.
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 Trustee, I went to Trump University School of Law, and okay, fine. Move that aside. But the degrees have been so watered down
Yeah.
and we're sort of getting, we can, hit point by point of all the unfortunate, uh, precepts that people have about careers. We talk about this, Mike, in doing intake discovery sessions. When a job opens up at a company,
Yep.
we have a meeting with the hiring managers.
Mhm.
In the old days, they're called rec consults. There's a difference from a recruiting standpoint between, we call them talent advisors, who just don't take shit from hiring managers. Let's be honest. Just because you're the manager doesn't mean you know everything. Then there are the order takers, the waiters and waitresses, who go,
Right.
you want your hamburger cooked, these kind of fries, bring it back. It doesn't matter if it's a perfect meal. The customer says, I don't like it, take it back. Okay. What we do during these intake sessions, we try to identify what specific initiatives are facing what, because we hire people to solve problems, fix things. So ultimately, I'll shorten this up right now, but then the manager will say, someone has to have 10 to 15 years of experience. Then you say, okay, so I have only begun to roll my eyes, Joseph. And so then, okay, so we've identified these specific problems, these things that are keeping you awake at night, these deliverables. And then you say, so if I find someone who has solved those problems, but they only have 6 years of experience, you don't want to speak to them, right? Manager said, I didn't say that. Well, I can read back I'll read you back the notes. Well, I don't so that's how we in business, in a talent space, you have to ask these hard questions. You have to challenge people, because I think in 38 years, I think maybe I've interviewed some 10,000 people. I screwed up a lot early on. We all did. But then you talk about a hiring manager or a hiring, scion, who maybe, I'm really experienced. I've interviewed 30 people. Okay,
Yeah.
Skippy, come back when you're an adult.
Yeah.
But these are the things that, it's
yesterday.
like yesterday. 2024 is just another paradigm shift.
Yeah.
and paradigm shifts are lovely opportunities to study history and see are we making the same mistakes again, or are we changing the rules? Are we questioning the rules because it's the right thing to do? I mean, that's 2024. It's one of them in most people's careers. This will be the year that they really remember. You know, we remember a few other things, depending on how you don't, Joseph. You're the baby here, so you don't remember any of these things. But things like, you know, we remember these emotional paradigm shifts in the economy. And they change how, and invariably each one changes. It's a scalloping effect. It's like a curling when you know when the stone hits it and just sends it off in another direction. That's where we are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think on that
I think
note,
you're right
what I
on.
really love about what you just said, that the paradigm shift in the focus on the choice points that come into our careers. Like right now, for instance, I'm pondering, oh, should I shift into HR? You know, with the talent acquisition piece of it. So like, you know, I could go that route. I have an HR background. I could go down that road. I think the key is to monitor.
You're better in CA. Don't go HR.
I'm just saying,
Your
one thing
comments
that
just blew up, Steve. Here they
monetizing.
come.
One of the interesting things. Remember a few weeks back we had Ryan Welty on, Robert, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking with him about branding and career. And one thing that was really cool, this young kid, 26 years old, he's created a brand for himself, and he's done a really good job. He's built a YouTube following up to 1,000, and it's growing. Like it's just, there's things like that. It doesn't matter. You got to find your passion and go after it. And choice points in your career give you opportunity to make a better choice. Now, what you were talking about, Steve, about the hiring manager and reconsulting with them to repivot the way they see the search, it's the same thing that you have to do. Flip that script and actually do it in your own career.
Absolutely.
It's very important because you have to analyze the trend lines, what's happening. We kind of did that, Robert, about one of our last shows.
Yeah.
We got to keep looking at where follow the curve. Where's it going? And that makes you a better professional.
Yeah. You know, thinking about that, Mike, I appreciate you bringing that up. Something that just is rolling through my mind right now. If we went back a second ago, like there's a couple things we saw. Joseph, you were talking about, hey, I have this personal thing like sleep issues. What if I could help other people? Mike, your wife was like, she cares about these preschool kids. So she started something where she's helping out those families and those kids. And Steve, when you zoomed in and just said, hey, so you're trying to solve that hiring manager's problem, I think the thing that threads all of that together that's pretty neat that I don't want people to miss is if you can become a person that cares enough about that other person to say, hey, I just really want to help you out. Like, you might be an expert or whatever, but if you care enough about the end result and you care enough about that person to ask those kind of difficult questions, you've just created a business. Like the only thing you have to do now is ask for some money. That's it. It's the only difference between giving free advice.
Dad, can I have a bigger allowance, please?
Yeah,
and sometimes there's opportunities you don't even need to do that. You can, like, the scale up that I use my wife as an example. Very little cost. Just need a business license and put a grit on the back of our, on the window wells so that the kids don't fall in. That was the extent. Smart. And then other little business supplies that she got from here and there. She already had a bunch of stuff. So it's sometimes the cost of entry isn't that big. And it may just be like, if you want to hang a shingle out there, a lot of recruiters, for example, have started their own practices.
Oh, they have. I mean, and
some of them are good and some of them are very bad, but
they're not very bad. No. They're not very bad. They just haven't gained traction yet.
There you go.
Well, I just said, Steve, I think you and I know there are some that are essentially bad.
Yeah, some of them really should find another profession. I get it.
That's what I mean. They're not the human.
The market will help.
Anyways. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I heard early in my career, I had a mentor that kind of challenged me, and they just said, "Look, I just think everyone should own a business. Like if you're in America, and it just, you know, not to get too philosophical, but if you're in America, it's a great place to run a business. I mean, there's so many laws. I mean, who makes the laws, right, in our country about taxes and everything else? They're usually business owners. So fun fact, owning a business actually really helps you out with a whole lot of things. It creates a lot of opportunity for you that you just don't otherwise have. I mean, our whole, you know, our founding principles in this country was independent ownership of like your things are yours, and you have the right to grow those and to pursue the things that you're looking for.
Yep.
It's in the DNA. I mean, even if it's a side hustle or whatever you have, running a business in the United States today, it's different in different states, of course, but generally speaking, it's a really great way to actually conserve some of your cash, burn off some of your expenses. You know, if your cell phone bill now becomes a business expense, that's something you don't have
I
to
was
pay
going to say that
taxes
the tax pieces
on. Yeah,
alone can be amazing.
because you deduct that from your taxes, and that by itself, you know, you've just basically given yourself a 30% raise
Hmm.
because you're not paying,
Yeah.
you're deducting your taxes out from that.
yeah.
So
And I would
yeah,
like to
America's designed for owning a business. It's a
and I
great
would like
idea.
to tie what you're saying in with what something Mike was saying earlier about doing things in a certain order and being able to push through. And also tying into what Steve was saying, he was talking about the rock and you're skipping it and you're throwing it out. It reminded me, I don't know if this is going to pop up here. Probably not. This is a diagram of, you
Yeah.
can use that a lot in physics.
That's
Ah,
cool.
And so
Yeah.
I think a lot
Centripetal
about
force.
that when it
Nice.
comes to the amount of energy and effort that we need to put in to accomplish a lot of the things we want to do, because we talk a lot about like the after effects, the, okay, I made it. I have my, like, for instance, I'm deducting my cell phone bill for business purposes and whatnot. And sometimes, and if somebody out there is listening right now and they're thinking, yeah, I mean, that sounds good, but to get to that point, it does take effort. It does take energy. It's not going to just fall into your lap. Like that circle that I just showed in physics, it's a loop caused by centripetal force. And for it to leave that pathway, an exogenous or a foreign body with more energy than the loop itself needs to come in and then redirect the course so it's in a new. And so this transitions like to the different spheres, the different things. You have to have that effort to move into that next level, like Steve was talking about.
I
So
love this. I love this.
I love
I love this concept. Wow.
any
That's
discussion of
awesome.
Newton's laws
Oh,
just
yeah.
makes me all hot.
Well, see, what's cool about this
Yeah,
is there is
classic.
inertia in our careers, right? Like if you're in a transitional period, like I am, I actually had to think about this in a different way. Like you go through phase, like it's very important to quantify this. You start with kind of a mourning phase when you're hit with a layoff or some kind of
Mhm.
transitional point. It's like it's like, man, I was doing a great job. I love that role, but it wasn't your fault. Like it came into being. Like when that happens, you're just stuck for a bit and you have to get out of that mode because
Yeah.
it's very tough to realign and then get back to the entrepreneurial spirit of your career but the centripetal force of having that happen. I've heard so many stories where
Yeah,
a
the
pivot
paradigm
point
shift I
like
was talking
this,
about.
exactly, at the pivot point
Yeah.
of getting into the inertia of the job search, you start to find amazing people that you're talking to. You're making connections. It's like you're selling yourself. I mean, it gives you confidence as you start getting into more interviews. It's like that inertia of going in that direction of building starts to really, like what you were just talking about is such an amazing concept in careers because
Mhm.
that's that effort, that energy we expend every single day, it has to come back. I mean, if you're blessed to be in a space that you absolutely love, in a job you absolutely love, in a profession you love, that's going to guide everything else you do. It's going to take you down that road. It's going to move you there. So like for talent acquisition professionals right now in transition, I think that concept is a beautiful one. What you just talked about just really hit me. That was amazing. So great job.
It just I've been there. I know how hard it is to want to do. Like right now, there are other ventures that I'm wanting to get off the ground, but I have to be patient. Just like again, what Steve was saying, I have to be patient. I have to. I'm analyzing the landscape. What, for instance, one of the things I'm looking into doing and doing the steps to get into is to get into consulting myself. But I need to make sure that I go in at the right time and that I don't just abandon other things, and everything needs to be done in a specific order. Otherwise, I'm just going to blow everything up that I have that's connected to it too.
We talk about that in the LDS Church quite a bit. Everything's done in a specific order, and there's a reason for that. Like everything follows every choice you make, every movement you make builds on a past choice. Like I love Ed Milet. I have to kind of give this man a call out because he talked about a concept of becoming the next best version of yourself. Like everything you're going through right now is leading you to become a better version of yourself. And I listened to that podcast the other day, and it was absolutely transforming because that paradigm of you're becoming a better version of yourself by what you're experiencing now, it creates an inertia that makes you a better person. And it's amazing to think about. And then you start, once you snap out of that, morning phase of job search in the beginning, you start doing something different, which is actually helping people. Like right now, I'm working on a project with Jim Shroud, for those who know him.
We need to talk. Yeah, we need to talk about that.
I know well, we're not trying to step on your toes over at Recruiter Therapy, I promise.
It's okay.
We'll talk about it. We can talk about it
after. It's okay. Jimmy's one of my besties, so you're good too. So don't worry.
We'll even work with you.
But I do know where you live.
Anyhow,
even the Dennings.
The intent to do good things and help people and move in the right direction is really what scales you, I think. When you have that perspective, that's really what leads in the right direction for everything.
That lends itself towards a good concept of entrepreneurship. In addition to helping yourself, I found you schedule time each week to help others. Do the pro bono. I mean, I schedule anywhere from 3 to 6 hours a week to just, people post, I need this, I need that. I'll call, Mike, I call them up.
You do.
Freak people
out.
out.
A wonderful thing that you do.
Call them up. And I'll talk to them, and I'll put a post up on the Blue Devil. But by the way, the Blue Devil is what we call LinkedIn, in case you remember it. Joseph, it's not because of the jacket that you're wearing, but we call it a Blue Devil. And then people become
can't live without it.
Yeah, well, once people start receiving help from others, and they realize there's nothing required in return. Yeah. Okay, maybe if in town a beer or coffee, that's fine, but literally nothing in return. Then they start giving up to others, and pretty soon you have, a level of emotional inertia that is invaluable, particularly in this environment. We have this confluence of a very different work environment than when I started. I mean, it's important to talk about this. Warren Buffett, not too many years ago, lamented that the stock market had changed from being an investment vehicle to a speculation vehicle. And we're seeing the same things in business. Anytime you believe that a layoff, for example, is going to increase the long-term value, it doesn't increase the long-term value. The street wants to see, I can play the float. I can play these small little changes and make money. When you see an environment where it just happened with Paramount, they had a very, very, very successful Super Bowl season, and they just laid off 600 people. Look, guys, you got us over the line, but we have reassessed our assets, and we feel it's time to rationalize and right-size our buy.
Yeah.
It's
stock goes up.
It's a different environment now, and the one constant that we all have is our ability to help others and band together, listen. 2 ears, one mouth, using proportionally, and all variations of that. And look, it worked for me. Why don't you try it? Couldn't hurt. Let me show you how
Yeah.
this works. Pass it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, you kind of reminded me of that the other day.
I
'Cause
sound Mormon, don't I?
no, you're fine.
It might be the tractor on your hat.
It's funny you were talking about like going out and helping people, and I have legitimately met people in my life who that isn't their mission, and they couldn't care less about helping others, and they're in it for themselves. And I think that success really comes in when you are helping others and you have a passion for it. And I just thought, I mean, I was looking over the title of this podcast series, where in this brand that you've been doing, Mike, for a couple of years now. Where's your next? And I just had the thought, where's your next? And the answer is where your why is. So wherever your why is, why you do things, that's where it goes. And then, and also, Steve, when you were talking about the speculation, how the market no longer, it's now a speculative market. It reminded me of when, like I was saying before, it was one of my first conferences. I was going out and I was meeting people, and there's this one investor. He was very interested. I think I know who it was still in the back of my head. He's a member of the Park City Angels. But he was talking to me, said, hey, you know what? I love this idea. I think it's going to go places. Once you have $1 million in sales, I'm 100% in, and I'm going to invest. And I was upset about that at first. Like, what? I'm a kid from the west side of Salt Lake City. Where am I going to get $1 million of sales? I'm looking for money to help me build this. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm sharing this also for those out there who are in similar situations. Like, I need funding. How am I going to get my idea off the ground? And I then took a step back and I saw it from his perspective and other investors.
Yeah.
There are a lot of snake oil salesmen out there, and they might be able to craft an amazing pitch and make something that is nothing sound like it's something. So sometimes the reason that they're hesitant about investing is because they want to see the proof in the pudding, and not just that you have a silver tongue, but that you're actually have something that can generate income. And then they're going to invest at that point. So don't take it offensively, anybody out there who's in that situation. It has nothing to do with you personally. It's just that a lot of people have tainted the waters. And so that's when you were mentioning the whole speculative thing, that's one aspect of it is, hey, there's a lot of liars out there. You got to be careful.
Yeah. I mean, there's something that we use in that I've always believed when I'm doing hiring. It's don't tell me, show me. Behavioral questions are nice. Being able to be grilled about your plan and this and that, that's nice. But show me something. Show me something that's going to make me go a little bit more.
Yeah, there's the whole way we look at our careers could be looked at from the standpoint of that your own mini business in a way. Like there's like, what is your addressable market, right? They do that when you're an entrepreneur. What is your proof of concept? What is that? It's what you're talking about is very true. I think there's an element of all this that you need to adopt in any endeavor in business, because sometimes it's, I go back to Shark Tank, right? I go to Shark Tank. I love Shark Tank. I mean, if you're ever sitting there and you're getting stuck in your job search, go watch Shark Tank for a minute. The reason I say that is because they talk about the business that they're focused on. Take some of the, the ideas and the ways that they present themselves into your own career movement. If you're thinking about, how do I get started with this? Like we're talking about entrepreneurship today, right? Well, go to Shark Tank and watch it, because there's pieces there and elements there that you can adopt into your strategy and the way they go about it, getting people to invest in them. It's the same idea. Anytime an employer hires you, if you're an employee, it's an investment in you. Get a paradigm shift a little bit.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the reasons I've been going slower on my hiring campaign right now. We're opening things back up again. We're going to be looking for both a CTO and a principal investigator for our upcoming research that's coming up. But we've been going very slowly at it. And we didn't hire one last year or the year before because we didn't want to be one of those tech companies that overshot
and
They do
overhired.
that?
and then
Had to
this
lay
affects
off.
people's lives. I mean, I've met people who I've received messages from people saying, I will quit my job today to go work with you. And my first thought is, that's a lot of responsibility. As somebody who is a business owner, that somebody is gambling. Maybe they don't even see it as a gamble because they love the idea so much, but they're gambling their current well-being and ability to fund their life and their family and their loved ones on this. And so I have a giant responsibility to make sure I'm being responsible and not putting somebody in a bad situation. So methodically and slowly. And for a lot of people, it might be too slow, but this is very important to me because I've been in those kind of situations where I depended on somebody else and things went very poorly. And I don't want to repeat that with somebody else.
But the point that you bring up is one that, Mike, we talked about that earlier. One of the keynotes I gave at a conference a couple of years back was called, it was about courage.
Mm-hmm.
And, in order to be courageous, you have to confront your fears. I remember asking the audience, and this was the large, I think about 800 or so people at this one, Mike. I asked the audience, stand up, who here, what in our business, in talent acquisition, recruiting, what do you fear? And of course, no one starts. So I said, fine, I'll go first. I said, what I fear is someone who I sourced, found, engaged, pulled them involved, got them into the process, through the process, got them to the point where we made them an offer. And this was back when we were relocating, and then relocated them from one city to another. I always fear that 6 months later, you're going to come back to me and say, you lied to me about this place.
Mm-hmm.
And
or the
so,
flip side of that, the hiring manager says that to you. You said this candidate.
well, you can imagine how my conversations with hiring managers go. But the point being is, to you, Joseph, is the honesty piece. We talk about things like authenticity and honesty, but I don't like the word authenticity. I think that's a word that the 40 and the 40 generation uses. It's not, you're never going to go to your spouse, Mike, you go to your wife, honey, I wish you were more authentic with me. She'll go, Mike, sleep on the couch. Go do another DoorDash thing. The honesty pieces. The most important thing that someone can say in an entrepreneur or in any situation is, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, Joseph, from a hiring standpoint, if someone wants to join you and the best you can do is like, these are the things I know. These are the things I don't know. Maybe we should talk and try to find a way to fill in some of these pieces. We're not going to fill in all these pieces. And then if an adult makes that the best informed decision they can, you're absolved.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was in my evaluation in those situations, I saw we are not ready to bring somebody else on. That would be, yeah.
But
I had to tell that to them.
I know, but the hard part then is, the we are not ready, define that gap.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. And it may be a revenue, it may be, the
revenue,
some elements, well, it's always the revenue. I can't pay you, but, I can buy you coffee from time to time.
Yeah, exactly.
But that is, but even then, you give people the option, and maybe you can get a fractional person in there. So
that's what we're at right now. Yeah.
Well, some challenges that people face in their careers too is, we were talking about the authenticity. Now, authenticity, I would call it candor. I think there's a better word, candor. Candor and feedback is a gift, and sometimes when you hear it, you get very defensive, right?
Oh, yeah.
And my wife, she will always speak her mind. Like, I always know where she stands, and I always know what's happening. And you're smiling, Joseph, because you know exactly what I'm talking about.
She's fantastic. Yeah,
she is. She speaks her mind. She does it in a really good way.
I'm just thinking you're toast. You're toast.
No, she speaks her mind, and when she does, it's like, okay, you're right. She has a really good way of putting things. That there's a reason.
Honey.
There's a reason I married her. So
at least one. At least one.
That's,
You know,
that's one of the big ones.
I think that one of the things that I have been reflecting on in the last little bit, especially, we're in TA, those of us that are in recruiting, and we look at the market, and there's been so many people that have been affected in the last little while.
Yeah.
And what's challenging for me is I think I got a gift early in my career as a recruiter. And speaking of feedback as a gift, I had a boss that told me that I wasn't taking enough ownership of my desk. In recruiting speak, that's like, you could think of a person who cuts hair and they kind of pay booth rent, right? But it's their business inside this other business. And he really challenged me to take more ownership of my desk, to own all the inputs and outputs, and to really own that. And something about, recruiting, at least as an agency recruiter, it kind of created that little bit of wiggle room for me where as I settled into that mode, it actually generated or kind of settled in my mind this idea that, sure, I might have a paycheck from this company that comes on a regular basis, and I might have benefits and everything else, but I'm my own person. And my career is mine, right? And a couple of years ago, I came across that quote from, I think it was Mike Tyson, that some reporter was asking him about a fight that was coming up, and like, what are you going to do? And he says he's got a plan how to take you down, and because he was the champ at that time. And Mike Tyson says everyone's got a plan to get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, that's a real deal, So when you realize and build that grit and resilience to say, sure, like I might not be an entrepreneur, but I have a job, I have a task, I have things that I do, I have things that I choose to do inside my work hours, outside my work hours, to get better at this, to kind of expand my influence, to build a network of people that believe, I'm lucky in recruiting that when it comes time to look for something else, I have a lot of people that I've helped find something else, and they're generous enough to say, yeah, sure, I'll put in a good word for you. Yeah. And that's a lucky thing. I mean, if I never asked for $1 from them, I've earned more because of that feedback, because of that. So I think that's just one of the elements here of, you might not be a business owner, but you do own your career. It is yours. No one's going to care about your job more than you do. No one's going to care about your paycheck and your bills more than you do. And if we kind of can break out of that little mold of like, no, I'm just a corporate drone, I just do this, if that's where you're at, I think that, what we know, if you look back in history, Steve, you were saying it, look back in history, people that were, what's the famous thing they say in business school? Not a single company that made ice boxes where you had your big chunk of ice in there to keep your food cold. Not a single one of those companies transitioned to making refrigerators. Not a single one of them. They all went out of business because they couldn't see it coming. They didn't believe it. They're like, no. Who's going to plug that thing in? It's, this big fan on top. It's going to be super loud. No one's going to ever do that. Everyone's going to just buy ice from us, just like they always have. Yeah. And they all went out of business.
What did Edison say? I failed 1,000 different times on how to not make a light bulb.
Yeah.
I succeeded once in making a light bulb. So
I've heard. I don't know if you actually said it, but I have heard
something like that. Yeah.
Doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down. What matters is that you.
Yeah.
Get up one more.
When I was a teenager, I worked at Blockbuster, and this was 2005.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Do you still have one of the cards?
I do. Actually, my card is right here.
You have one. Oh my gosh! Wow.
Right here. Also have my Blockbuster card. My ID card. Yeah.
That's it. That deserves it.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so
you gotta frame that.
There's as a reminder. Yeah, it's and I remember we were working there, we were talking, and I was like, yeah, so this Redbox thing and like Netflix, they're sending out these DVDs over the mail, and then everybody I talked to, they're like, no, the higher ups like, no, it's fine. We don't need to worry about it because people like the status quo. They like the way they love going in and being able to talk to associates and get movie recommendations. We have nothing to worry about.
Who was that?
Well, back in 2005, I worked at Venturi Staffing.
Oh, there you go.
And I was helping with staffing one of the warehouses, the actual warehouse where Blockbuster was actually trying to compete with Netflix. because they had ignored it for so long.
Mhm.
And then what happened? They came up to 2005. They were trying to do this thing. They waited too long. Their
Yep.
market
Waited
share
too
was
long.
gone.
Yeah.
They started
Yep.
closing all these shops. There,
Mhm.
where's the one that still exists? There's one that exists somewhere.
Oregon, Bend, Oregon.
Oregon, yeah. So, but there's one store left, right? And it's just it's a testament to look at Netflix now, one of the fangs, right? It's really crazy. But you think about that, and I remember when I was starting out in HR, I was looking for an internship, and I said to the staffing person that I was over at Nesco Resource, I said, "Hey, do you have any leads?" And she goes, "Oh, there's this great company. It's called Netflix, and they're up and coming. You should look into them. They're growing so fast, and they'll need help." And before we knew it, they just exploded on the
Retired.
scene.
Like,
There is your IBM moment right there.
that
Yeah,
was
crazy.
it. Yeah. I saw someone on LinkedIn earlier today. They posted about how they returned a Apple Vision Pro, and
Oh,
there
yeah.
was a moment, and he's like, I returned it because, yeah, stuff about it was cool, but then he had all these reasons why he returned it. And he basically, like, at the end, he just said something like, I mean, because I just don't know what anyone would use that for. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, like, oh, and by the way, people ever use a computer in your hand? Because there's one on your desk that's way better. And why would you ever get two phone numbers, one for your house and one for your car?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. Yeah. So, time will tell.
If you went back to the 60s, 70s, and 80s and you told somebody where Sears would be today, like, oh, yeah, no one would believe you. Yeah.
I did some recruiting for them. I believe why they. I
You
know-
knew that you saw behind the
I know
curtain.
exactly why. I mean, I also used a slide rule in high school physics. That
Oh
shows
man.
you.
Oh boy.
I saw
Well,
a
and
slide
who
rule.
would have thought back in the early 80s? I remember when we got this tiny little thing called a Macintosh computer, and we were all enthralled by it. Like I remember my dad was like, "Wow, this is so cool. This is so small," and it was just like, and it was the ones that they used to have were so big, and he was used to the little punch card things that used to plug in. But then he has this tiny little machine that looks like a little thing, and this little printer that goes, remember, and then they fixed those, and that's evolved. Just things like that you think back on. What about the phone? We talk about one of my favorite pictures of Steve Levy is he's near a payphone, and he's like, "What is this?" And it's
People send me
the
pictures.
funnest
People
thing
send
ever.
me pictures of them on their travels in
That is
front
awesome.
of a phone. That's pretty.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one
My
of the most
kids like this
iconic
song called
staffing
Payphone.
pictures that's out there in the world today is Steve Levy by a payphone.
I'm gonna find you one, Steve. Probably in a national park, maybe in a museum in a national
I
park.
have plenty of them. I got plenty of them. They're fine. I'm good.
The things that we've been talking about is kind of reminded me tangentially about a conversation that Mike and I had last week, actually. And it was about you're in your employment, and then maybe all of a sudden you're either gone because they let you go, or it's time for you to retire. And I was thinking, and the reason I thought about this, I was thinking about all the people who were at Netflix or at Blockbuster, and then they lost their jobs, and like, what am I going to do now? All the people who were at Sears and all of these things. And a lot of times people have identified so much with their employment and their job that they don't know what to do next. And so the reason because the topic today is entrepreneurship. One of the things, and Steve hit on the nail on the head again, or hit the tooth. Yeah, I hit
the tooth on the nail.
Yeah, I'm going to start using that saying now. Hit the tooth, and it was not having your entire career, even for anybody who's listening, even if you are in a stable career or what you hope is stable and everything is going well, do some entrepreneurship to the side. Steve was mentioning the fractional person. Do things on the side. Don't let 100% of your attention be on this enterprise that you're in right now, because it's out of your control. Mike mentioned a little bit about scriptures and religion a little bit earlier. For those who are familiar with the Bible, they're the Beatitudes that Jesus, and he's on the summit and he's saying all these different things. And he said, don't put your heart on the things of this world, because they can be stolen, they can be taken from you. Don't focus on the things you have no real control over. Yeah. I mean, because
your family is so important. Like,
they can be taken from you.
People in your life, your friendship.
Yeah, you could be fired and whatnot. There's a great song by Ben Folds called Fred Jones Part 2. And it goes through I'm not going to go with the summary. It goes through a person who's been working at this company for decades, and it's his last day on the job. He's grabbing all of his prized possessions, everything that was his identity, and he puts it in a box. And there's this young guy. Oh, no, you do not want me to sing it. No. And there's this young buck outside waiting to take his place, and they're going to swap places. And then he goes out with very little accolade, and nobody even remembered that he was there. He's like, he was there. And then even after decades, they just replaced him like he was replaceable. And then it showed the aftermath. It's very powerful part of the song. He's sitting in his basement trying to take up a hobby. And he's sitting there with a projector on the screen. He's trying to trace and see if he can trace the portrait. And then he just gets angry and he throws the canvas. And he's like, what am I doing with my life? Because everything, 100% of his effort was in his career. And so if you want to be doing more things, not only is the entrepreneurship route something that can help you like exercise muscles that your current career might not be allowing you to, but it also helps you be able to know what you can do after retirement, because there is life after retirement. And maybe you're going to go and continue volunteering at your local Rotary Club or at some other nonprofit, or maybe you'll become the executive director of a nonprofit part-time. There are things that you can do. And even if, like I say, even if you're in a stable career, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people who were like chief officer of this in some state. They're headhunted, brought over. A year or two later, they're laid off, and then they have to, like, I uprooted my entire life, my entire family, and their identity was in that. And they go through, just like Mike was saying, that bout of depression. And I think, right, because I'm fractional myself right now, I think right now, if my employment at Intermountain ended, I would be very bummed out, and I'd be a little concerned financially. But I have so many other things in the works and irons. It's like, okay, well, I mean, dust off a little bit, repair my ego. Hey, they let go of me, but I'm me. You can't let go of me. I'm a good guy.
You can be like a Swiftie. You can shake it off.
That's right. Yes, exactly. Yeah, you can't go through a conversation without mentioning Taylor Swift. I mean, it's true.
You can't do it.
But yeah, you go forward and like, hey, I have other things going on. I know my worth. The job was using me for work, and I was using them for money. And we're parting ways, maybe not amicably, but I have other things. My identity is not with Intermountain, for instance.
Who's the pimp in that situation?
That's an interesting question I had not considered, but it does make me wonder. Yeah.
Well, one thing I do want to say is you're coming to a point where I think we can bring this home.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think you need to have multiple streams of income in some way, shape, or form. And so, for instance, I'll give you an example. My side hustle was DoorDash, delivery, whatever, right? I've gotten really good at it. I know how to multitask on all those apps and maximize my time. I can pull in $250 a day.
That's
I can
amazing.
make enough to survive and do what I need to do while I'm in my transition period of time. I also invest in dividend stocks, which pay me a certain amount, and that's passive. And there's other streams of income that you can bring in. This is why entrepreneurship is so powerful. You're creating multiple streams of income. So if one goes down, you have another way to pay your bills. And you got to start somewhere to have several ways to get you where you're trying to go. And that's a powerful concept. That's entrepreneurship to me. Multiple streams of income, multiple streams of opportunity.
But it's very easy. The unfortunate, it is somewhat unfortunate, is people they hear these things and they think, well, they can, if that schlemiel can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah, I'm dumb, so I completely get that.
And then they realize, and then it doesn't come through.
Mm-hmm.
And what no one sees, and this is, how often does the Blue Devil, are you interested in becoming a franchise owner?
Yes.
That, to me, it's up to about 10 plus a week, that shit like that, amongst other things. So I understand that you've been, you're open to work.
Oh dear.
Have you looked at your financial requirements? Click on this Calendly link for me. nobody sees the work that goes into it. And, you know, take Mike, you know, all these door dashes, you know, one benefit of being in recruiting, we've got a ton of crappy systems that we have to use. And if we can navigate through Workday and Green and
Workday, wow.
Leo and Brass Balls and all those others, we can certainly make all these delivery apps. We can find a way to integrate them all together.
So true.
Actually work. Those
But
apps actually work.
I know. Someday, as we call it.
We're definitely coming at time, but I love this dialogue. I think that the major point that I want to drive home, and this was really, really a good conversation. And I hope our audience takes something from it, because I think they will. Entrepreneurship is very powerful. It sets you up for success in your future career. And we'd love to have you guys back sometime, Mr. Levy and Mr. Arrington.
Love it.
We'll probably switch up a panel again and have another dialogue about this concept. But you guys did great. This was a great combo.
I'll come back. I have to get more ink, so we'll see about it.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Until next time, and where's your next? Thanks for
Thanks,
joining us.
everyone.